Welcome back to the Metal Exchange. Justin and Chris back again. And in this case, I really am back as I just got back from 70,000 tons of metal 2026. Ahoy! Let's talk about my trip, shall we? Obviously, we'll go back to the regular format next week. Lots of news to discuss, lots of new music to discuss. But this week, we'll focus on 70,000 tons of metal. Before we get into it, and obviously I'm not saying to rub this in, but what were your thoughts on the lineup just in general? Did you think it was one of their better lineups? Again, I'm not looking for a band by band comparison, but what did you think of this year's lineup top to bottom?
To me, for my taste, it wasn't my favorite lineup, but it might have had the most bands that I was familiar with that I would definitely be willing to see. Just like looking at this list, I'll just name the bands that I was familiar with: Ad Infinitum, Amorphous, Anthrax, Arcona, Beast in Black, Cemetery Skyline, Dark Tranquillity, Dragonland, Elvady, Firewind, Haggard, Illumishade, Insomnium, In Virtue, Jagdpanzer, Camelot, Leaves Eyes, Ordinogan, Paradise Lost, Persephone, Rhapsody of Fire, Royal Hunt, Seven Spires, Skyclad, Sow and Soil Work, Trick or Treat, Tear, Wind Rose, Wolf, and Xandria.
That's 90% of the lineup. So obviously a lot of familiarity. For myself, I was super excited. There were certain bands on this cruise that I was dying to see for one reason or another. There were some old favorites that I looked forward to seeing again. And by and large, it was a lot of fun, and I'll get into it, in greater detail.
I think I've probably asked you this in past years, but do you make a habit of trying to create a skeleton schedule that as far as there's a handful of sets I absolutely don't want to miss, and then I'll fill in everything else with whatever's happening at the time? Or is it just
1,000%?
Complete, because I could see it going either way, where you also could just completely wing it because there's always somewhere to go. There's always somebody pulling you in a certain direction. I would almost 1 year want to be I'm just going to go where the wind takes me and not make any plans. And then maybe on the trip back, if there's anything that I didn't see that I really want to see, I don't know. It just seems you just have so many things happening. You can't really go wrong. I feel no matter what you do.
If you wing it, you'll be fine. But there's a couple of factors that I try to keep in mind when I'm doing this. Number one, obviously, if there's certain bands or certain special sets that I want to see. Number two, it's wanting to see the right bands on the right stages. I wouldn't necessarily want to see certain bands in the small little lounge because it's just not the best setup of the four setups. And then ultimately there's the fact that I want to see X amount of bands, and I know that if I just wing it, I might have conflicts, which obviously I had conflicts this year because there were so many things that I wanted to see. But again, I don't have it down to an exact science, but one thing that was a lot different this year than years past was that there were just so many things I wanted to see that I found myself watching a lot of full sets instead of bouncing around between two different sets, which I had done in the past. But what also made this year very different was the fact that the weather here in New York was terrible leading up to the cruise. And so we got a big, foot of snow a couple of days before I was scheduled to leave. And I started to freak out because the cruise was leaving on Thursday. I was flying out on Wednesday, and flights were canceled on Monday and Tuesday, a lot of flights. So much so that when I looked at the app on Tuesday afternoon, flights on Wednesday were already being canceled on the airline I was flying. I was flying on American, and American has a hub in Charlotte and Dallas, and both of those airports were just decimated with weather issues, and it was delaying flights in and out of JFK because they couldn't get the planes up here. It was a complete disaster. And so I started freaking out. I called the airline on Tuesday. I asked them how to do the walk-on thing. I had never flown standby. I got to the airport at the crack of dawn because they said it shouldn't be an issue, except it was, because the two flights, I was trying to walk on the 7:30. The 5:30 and the 6:30 flights both canceled. So now I can't walk on to the 7:30 because all the people are now ahead of me that had their flights canceled. my 11 o'clock flight is delayed. And as I'm sitting at the gate, mind you, I think I went to 3 or 4 different gates because they kept changing. But as I'm sitting there waiting for my flight, I literally booked a flight on Thursday morning at like 5 a.m. I wasn't going to take any chances. I had to get down on this thing, and I figured worst case scenario, at least I have another flight if this day is a complete botch. But fortunately, made it down there, canceled my other flight, and I was able to make it into Miami, I think about an hour or two later than I was originally planning on getting there. No issue. Enjoyed a nice night, wound up meeting up with my friends. We had a big, nice hotel room. I was watching the St. John's basketball game as I always do. It was just a nice night, but a very low-key and chill night because I just know that I'm not going to sleep for 4 days, so I want one good night of sleep before this thing starts. But a lot of fun.
I imagine a lot of people have like nightmare travel stories this year.
It was really bad, and a lot of people were posting about it. I mean, it's weird though. I mean, so many people. I think of Keith from one of our Patreon members. I saw him down there. He flies in many days early, and God bless. I am jealous that he has the ability to do that. I unfortunately could not fit it in to my schedule and whatnot. But a lot of people do that, and even they were having plans. He drove from Tennessee to Miami because flights were going to be an issue, and he just saw the writing on the wall. And apparently he was not alone. Others made alternative arrangements, to say the least. So by and large, I was lucky, but at the same time, I was freaking out while I was at the airport. And so when I finally got down there and I got settled, I was a very happy man. And the negative, though, is that the trip had to be changed considerably because of weather-related issues, even down in the Caribbean. Normally, you board the thing on Thursday, the music starts on Thursday afternoon, all day Friday, you get into the port on Saturday, and then you come back Saturday afternoon, and you're back in Miami on Monday. They actually went straight from Miami to the Bahamas overnight on Thursday. So the music starts on Thursday. I wake up Friday morning, I'm in the Bahamas, and I'll get to that in a bit. But what that meant effectively was that there was a awesome night of music on Thursday, a nice rest day on Friday, and then Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday was music for like 800 hours straight until I landed. And so it was no real rest, but fortunately it didn't matter, and I'll get to that. So in a nutshell, that was it. And I was thinking of you because have you ever been to Miami or have you never been there?
Yeah, just overnight before going on a cruise that did not have metal bands on it.
Well, in that case, you missed out. But that's right. Now that I think about it, I know you're familiar with Royal Caribbean and this ship and everything else. So needless to say, good time in Miami, low key, woke up fresh as a daisy, got on the boat. But I was wearing hoodies, right? Like normally I'm wearing shorts and T-shirts. It's 75 degrees in Miami and hotter in the Bahamas. I didn't see 60s or high 60s the rest of the trip. I think even on Thursday afternoon, on the hottest day of the trip, I think it was 65 degrees. So I was wearing hoodies and jeans for most of the time. With that said, let me just kind of get into this first day on the ship. First band that I saw after lunch, first band, it was not the first band that played, but the first band I went to see was Seven Spires. And they were playing in the lounge, that small little lounge with that small stage, which was probably not the ideal place to see them, but I've seen them so many times that I didn't feel compelled to see there in another area. And I gotta say, the place was jam-packed for them. Jammed. I've never seen a show with so many people in this little lounge. So it was a cool setting and a cool vibe. They should have been in a bigger room, and I think if they go back on the cruise, they will be, because their second set was in one of the bigger rooms, but they, I think, have just outgrown the lounge, whereas there's other bands that fit perfectly in that small little venue.
I imagine the powers that be pay attention to that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's they've to their credit, they're now one of the bigger. Again, I'm not saying they're going to be as big as Anthrax, but they are one of the, they're in the top half in terms of draw, if you will. So I think that will keep them out of the lounge going forward. Although, again, cool setup, cool to see them with so many people in such a small room. And after I saw them, I went to see another band that I had never seen live before, and one that I was really curious about. This time I got to see Xandria in the big theater. Xandria I'd never seen. I'd always wanted to see them. I'm not going to say it was a bucket list band, but it was one of those things where I like their stuff enough that I just thought it would be cool to see. Have you seen them yet? I feel like they've done tours. I just don't know if you've caught them.
I've seen them at Prague. They played at Prague Power. When who was their singer at the time? Because they've had their fair share of vocalist changes. I'll pull it up really quick because she was great. Manuela Crawler.
Oh yeah.
And then I saw them again in New York City. They opened for Delaine and Sonata Arctica, and I think that was when Diane Van Giersbergen was singing with them. Or that makes sense. I have not seen them with their current singer Amber Vorvaeus. So
maybe I have seen them, but I had no recollection, and I certainly hadn't seen them with Amber. I stayed for about 4 songs, and the reason I left was I had plans to see them again, and it just didn't sound great. When I was where I was standing, I was kind of standing up front near the stage. It was just really bassy, and I couldn't hear the guitars, and the mix was just bad from where I was. And they were going to play the pool deck out in the Caribbean cold, I guess, later on in the trip. So I did kind of duck out early on this one. Not my favorite set by any means. I thoroughly enjoyed the second one more. We'll get to that. But the next band I saw was a band that I was really looking forward to. I had talked about them a little bit on the Top 50 episode. They had released an album last year that I loved, and the band was called Harakiri for the Sky, which is this like atmospheric black metal, proggy. They're all over the place. They were playing in the ice rink, which was fitting given the fact that it was getting real cold at this point. But they were by far the best of the 3 bands at that point. It was one of my favorite sets that day. They were so tight, and it sounded so clean for such dense music. I was hooked. And I saw their second set as well. Just so enjoyable, and such a band that, they do tour, but it's not like they're doing a ton of shows. I just hope they blow up in popularity, because the stage show and the intensity of the music was amazing.
Nice. Yeah. I'm not super familiar with them beyond, I think, one of their tracks that was on one of your recent playlists.
Yep.
But that's cool. I had a feeling when I saw them on the list that they would be on your radar as a band you'd want to see.
Yeah, totally. So I enjoyed that. After that, I went for something completely different. I went to go see Soen, which is interesting because I've now seen Soen a bunch of times, and this particular Soen set was probably the worst Soen set I saw. I would see them a couple of days later, and it was phenomenal. But this set was just somewhat disconjoined. The emotion was there, but the band, like at one point they introduced a song and then they wound up playing something completely different. It just felt off. I can't really explain it. Definitely emotional, definitely happy to see them again, but not their best of the 2 performances, to say the least. Whereas after Soen, you want to talk about something completely different. How about Dragonland in the lounge? High energy, as you know. Jonas, friend of the podcast, his vocal performance was outstanding, and a guy had walked by me and just goes, "Jesus Christ," and then just walks away. Like, and I didn't know the guy from Adam, but he was obviously blown away by the performance, and I think that was with good reason. Even in that shitty little room, they were great. Setlist, not my first choice, but that's just because I'm a fan of the band, and I would have my own preference of things I wanted to see. But it was a great show, and I was just so happy to see them after almost a decade.
Yeah, that was the one that I was most jealous about. I'm just such a big fan of that band, and then I would come to find out that they're playing at Mad with Power this year, and so they're going to be making their return to the U.S. The land version, and it's literally the weekend after the Norway festival that I plan on going on. So I'll probably miss them, but hopefully this means that they're touring more. I think Jonas had mentioned that they are working on new material, so it sounds like we're not going to have to wait another 10 years for a Dragonland album, but yeah, they're like low key one of my favorite bands. So I was very jealous of that, probably more than any of the other bands on the boat.
Yeah, really, really, really enjoyed that set. And it was surprising because here I am thinking Dragonland and Harakiri would be the two bands of the night for me, despite the fact that I had intended to go see 3 more shows that night. But I have to be honest, the next band was the band of the night. In the theater, packed house, Anthrax. And I know it was a joke because I think even Carrie Gordon, friend of the podcast, MSRcast, said to us, or said to me, bet Chris is kicking himself right now. We're like, there was an allusion to the fact that you obviously may not be the biggest fan of the band, but this performance might have actually converted.
I would have been there. If I was there, I would have gone. Like I think it's been overblown just because I didn't like that one album. But
listen, it's a joke as far as that goes. But the set list was something I think you would have known at least half the songs they played, and they would switch it up during their next set. But what a performance! I mean, you could tell that in terms of the professional band that they are, they just tore the place apart. The place was wild. The crowd was going bonkers. Joey Belladonna sounded like a 25-year-old. It was just fantastic. So much so that I want to go back and listen to a ton of Anthrax now because it was just that enjoyable. I did go see 2 more shows. I went back to the lounge to catch Illumishade, who I had seen at Prague Power, and I actually thought this performance was better. It was very loud, but their best performance in terms of the 2 or 3 times that I've now seen them. A band that, I don't know that they necessarily get their just due, but I think they just write killer songs. And their last album was great. I look forward to hearing new music from them. Just really, really enjoyable. And then after that, at 1 a.m, I went to go see Amorphis, also in the big theater. And it had a big set feel to it, even though it was so late. Just Amorphis is one of those bands that really is a true headliner. So to hear them after Anthrax was kind of fitting. I didn't think the performance was special. It was just really tight, sounded great, and it was classic Amorphis. They too, much like Anthrax, are pros. And I think I left the set maybe a couple of songs early because exhaustion began to set in. But it was really, really, really good. And all in all, day one was a night to be remembered.
Nice. Yeah, sounds like a packed day.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There was just so many things that, as you can tell, I'm kind of just going band to band to band. There were very little breaks in between.
Was there anything you missed on that first day that you would have wanted to see or you felt good about?
I don't recall that day if there was something in particular, but at the end, I'll tell you what I did miss and what I kind of regret, because I have 1 or 2 things that I would have liked to have seen that I now regret in hindsight. But listen, it was impossible, just physically impossible to be in 2 places at the same time.
Yeah, makes sense.
So day 2, land in the Bahamas, again, a day earlier than originally scheduled. Got off the boat, went out with Carrie and his wife and Pat into the little port area. And believe it or not, Pat and I decided to take a quick cab ride over to a resort where he and I both stayed independently at some point in our lives. And it was called Baha Mar, a beautiful, beautiful resort. And I decided to go play craps for a couple of hours because I knew there was a casino there. We had lunch, beautiful lunch. Made some money in the process, so I was in the green. That's always a highlight or whatever. And it was just such a beautiful place that I was sending pictures to Jen, and she was like, not the happiest person because she wasn't there with me again. But we really enjoyed ourselves when we were there the last time. So that was a lot of fun. Had to get back on the boat because, again, the music was starting around 5 or 5:30 as it did the first day. And so the first band that I saw was a band that I hadn't seen in quite a while, and I had not seen with their new singer, and that was Persephone. Persephone has a new vocalist on their new album. Very big shoes to fill, mind you. But I thought he did a very nice workman-like job, and the set was actually better than I thought it was going to be, given A, the location in the lounge, and B, the fact that I just, again, I think it's hard to replace certain vocalists, and he did a very, very solid job.
Nice. I actually just pulled up the running order, so I'm kind of like following along as you go down this list.
And I'm glad because it's I mean, as you can tell, it's an adventure. After Persephone, I went to see Amorphous again for like the second time in like 12 hours. And again, because they converted things and did things a little bit differently this time, unlike seeing bands a day or two apart, here I saw them like within 12 hours or 14 hours or something like that. But this was on a rainy pool deck stage. But I was out there for it because I didn't see every song of the first set. I thought that they were very good. I thought the second set had a little bit more of an atmosphere to it just because of the wind and the rain and whatnot, and it kind of fit the music. So that was cool. And with that, I went to go see Harakiri for the Sky again in the theater. This was even better than the first set. I thought that in the theater, in this big venue, it was just magic. I was in the right mood. I was in the right headspace. One of my favorite sets of the weekend, bar none, was that second Harakiri set. And honestly, if they come back to New York, I will go out of my way to see this band again because that's how impressed I was. They were easily one of the best bands of the weekend, along with Anthrax, which I mentioned earlier.
Nice.
Disappointing news after that. Went back up to the pool deck with every intention of seeing Beast in Black. And, we've talked about Beast in Black in various forms on the podcast. And when we talk about them, we always look back at that Prog Power performance. And I was very, very disappointed by that set. And it was a little bit surprising because other people had said that, I saw them here or there and they were very good. Thought they sucked at Prog Power. I'm not going to lie, like disappointingly bad. But I wanted to give them another chance, and I went up to the pool deck, and it was canceled because of the weather. It was so rainy and so windy that I think they were worried about equipment issues and fires and that sort of a thing. So I left, and I knew I would get to see them again, or at least I hoped I would, but that was disappointing. I did want to see that set, especially in that atmosphere, with the Caribbean sun setting, but that was not meant to be. Speaking of Beast in Black, you've seen them more than once. How did the other performances compare to the Prog Power set?
I saw them one other time, and I just thought it just in general sounded better. And it was when they were opening for Nightwish in Toronto. And they were even missing like a band member, but for whatever reason, I don't know what was going on at Prog Power, but like I thought it wasn't a well mixed performance. Like there was a lot, I think that was pre-recorded. It was just, I don't know if it was just nerves. I don't know. I hope that it was just a one of those one-off bad nights or whatever. But I thought they sounded much better at the time that I saw them prior to that. So I don't know. I will be looking forward to giving them another shot, opening for Halloween in April. So
nice. Needless to say, we'll get to that, but I'll just say when I did see them, they were really good, and I'll explain. So I've done a 180, or at least a little bit of a reversion as it relates to them. Then with Beast in Black not performing, I went to go see Arab Altar, which is like a blackened death band, if you will. I thought that the set suffered a little bit from poor sound. The low end, it was just a little bit muddy, but real very good guitar work. Their guitarist, or at least their touring guitarist, is a guy by the name of Jacob Bjornfot, and he is known as not only the guitar player for Arab Altor, but he really also has his own band, and he does vocals and guitars for Kvain, KVAIN. AEN, a band that I've mentioned in the past. It's probably my favorite black metal band, that's current and active. They've got 3 albums to their credit, and all of them are better than the next. And so I saw him at one point on the ship, and I said, I'm glad to see you again with Kevane. I saw him play with Ghost Ship Octavius at some point in the past. And I said to him, when are we getting your band on the ship, your black metal band? And, he didn't commit, but it sounds like he's trying to get on the boat, which would be really, really nice. I would really like to see that band because I think they would be phenomenal live. After Beast in Black.
Tell me, did you go see Haggard?
I did not go see Haggard.
Oh, okay. I thought that after we did their album, you might have been
seen them before, so I knew what it was. I went to go see Royal Hunt. DC Cooper was not singing for Royal Hunt. Were you aware of that, or did you hear about this?
Yeah, because people were just posting, I know my friend Anthony is a huge Mark Bowles fan, so he was losing his mind.
Okay.
He was so excited to see him live. I don't know that I would have shared the same enthusiasm, but I have seen them with Mark Bowles before, and I was with you, and it was a good show. So,
yeah,
I'm curious how it was on the boat.
So, I'm just a bit of a DC Cooper mark, although Mark Bowles put on a hell of a performance. But check this out, right? They're playing the rink, and they come out on stage, and all of a sudden the Awakening comes on. Then they come out and they play River of Pain, and then they come out and the next song is Tearing Down the World, and then they play Message to God. And I look over at Pat, I'm like, holy shit, they're playing Paradox. And it turns out that they didn't. They wound up switching the set list after that, but they played the first half. They
took a page out of Symphony X's book at Prague Power.
Exactly. And so I didn't get to hear Long Way Home or any of the other stuff. I did get to hear Marital Arts, but that's a whole nother. Martial Arts. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
I will say, if I had looked at those set lists and saw stuff from the first 2 albums or even the first 3 albums on there, I would have been so jealous.
Oh, I can only imagine. One day. They then mixed up the set after that, but it was a very, very good show, and I'm thrilled to be able to say that I saw them again. Mark Bowles, listen, guy did a great job. I can't say anything. And apparently DC Cooper has other commitments and work, and whatever he does on the side is the priority. So you never know who's going to come out and sing for them.
Yeah, I would have guessed that something like this that left out of the U.S. I don't know if he still lives in the U.S., but it would have been more likely for him to. But maybe he doesn't live in the U.S. anymore. I have no idea.
I think he does, but I can't say for sure. The pool deck did open back up. Soilwork was on the pool deck, and it was really nice once the rain stopped. Better than the last time I saw them. Last time I saw them was on 70K. They were not very good. And although the sound wasn't great, it was a high-energy set, good set list. I thought it was just an enjoyable show. They're always fun to see. And then I went back to the theater for a band that was another one of those bands that I think has probably played New York 25 times, and I've never seen them. Whether it was because I had prior commitments or I just, whatever it was, I never got to see Firewind. And I said, they're on the boat. How do I not go see this band? And I thought it was great. High energy, and Gus G can play the guitar, full stop. I mean, there's just no denying it. And not my favorite band, but a good set from a band that I was really, again, I was somebody I had always wanted to check out, and so I can finally cross them off the list.
Nice. Yeah, it's a band I've never seen either that I'd like to see at some point.
Yeah, I think you would enjoy them for sure, because they have that power metal lean, and I think that you would definitely enjoy that. Another bucket list band, if you will, and this one it was more bucket list than Firewind in that I really was going to go out of my way to see In Mourning, and they played in the lounge. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, high energy set, really intense vocals with 2 different guys doing growls. Not the most remarkable set I saw, but very good. And I'm just really happy I got to see them because I enjoy a lot of their material. So the kind of band that's probably never going to hop on a tour in this country, certainly not going to headline. So cross them off the list. It was one of the highlights for me, if for no other reason than I don't know that I'm ever going to see them again.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then Cemetery Skyline, a band that we saw not very long ago in the theater, saw half the set. It was great, but I was falling asleep and I had to go to bed.
Just the mention of their name, I could feel my feet and back hurting all over again as they were in September. But it looks like Michael Stane kept himself busy on this boat.
As he often does. And so that said, it was time for me to go to bed. I love them. I really hope that I get to see them again. But again, the fatigue was becoming a bit of a factor at this point. So we wake up day 3. It's 10 o'clock in the morning and the shows start, which is just bananas. But now we get into the nitty gritty of some of this stuff. Darkane, a melodic death metal band that I had always been curious about, was in the theater, played to a very modest crowd given the size of the venue, but they sounded better than I expected, and I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. I don't know that I was in the right headspace for it at whatever ungodly hour that they played in the morning, but cool band that, again, I'm glad I got to see. And then Royal Hunt again, this time in the theater, so a better venue, if you will. They changed their set list. They added some stuff. They played Lies, which is just a phenomenal song from the Fear album. They also played The Mission, the song The Mission, which was kind of cool. So it was cool to hear some of these songs that I hadn't heard, if ever. And again, Mark Bowl sounded great. So credit to him for just kind of pitching in and taking the bull by the horns.
Excellent.
Ad Infinitum, I got to see them on the pool deck. Really good show, right time of the day. I think they continue to improve. I enjoyed them at Prog Power, but you can see that just them playing show after show, touring like crazy, they are hitting their stride. They drew a big crowd. Melissa Bonney is the consummate show woman in front of the stage. Really, really good. Went to go see In Mourning again, this time in the rink. I didn't think it was as good as the first set. I actually thought they were better in the lounge, but the room was packed. I wanted to ask
you, what ended up happening with Ordenogan, the ever snake-bitten Ordenogan? Whenever it seems you're prepared to see them, something goes wrong. What? I know it was something with the singer again, right? Did they end up getting anybody to fill in?
They did, and it's funny because they really have been kind of snake bitten as of late. Obviously, just to kind of take us back to Prog Power for a second, they were headlining without a singer, and there was literally like a made up mannequin that was on stage, and it was kind of funny, but not what you're looking for. But the singer for this particular version of Ordenogan was Mark Lopez, the lead vocalist from Ross the Boss, and so somebody that at least you've heard of, but admittedly I didn't watch either of the two Ordenogan sets because to me it wasn't Ordenogan without Sieb, and I just skipped them. There was other stuff that I preferred to see.
At least they had somebody singing this time.
Oh yeah, and he did a very good job from what I heard. It just was not going to be. It wasn't in the cards for me. So. In Mourning, saw Soilwork again, another decent show, but I left early to go grab dinner because I wanted to be done for Beast in Black in the theater after missing their first set when they canceled it. This was redemption. It was packed. I mean packed. And the theater, as you may well recall from Royal Caribbean, is a big venue. It's got a balcony with a lot of seats. They take away the seats on the floor, so there's a big floor area, but there are plenty of seats on the floor as well. And this place was absolutely packed. And the crowd went absolutely nuts. I think they probably got the best reception of any band on the ship, maybe with the exception of Anthrax, but debatable. The place was packed, and they sounded great. And I think they were playing. I don't think it was all dubbed in. I mean, they do sweeten the sound a little bit, I will admit. But I thought they played a really good set. It was just so much better than Prog Power.
Good to hear. I'm excited to see them again soon.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll. We're 3 months away at this point, 2 months away, so that's cool. The next band I saw on the pool deck was a band that I have fallen in love with, if you will, because of their last album. And it was interesting because they played 2 sets, the second of which was supposed to be the new album, and I'll get to that. But I wasn't familiar with any of the band's first set on the pool deck, and it was Paradise Lost. And again, I love the new album, but I didn't know any of these songs, and it was one of the best sets I saw the entire weekend. They are so good, and they have so many different styles that they have done through the years. Gothic rock, a little bit of death metal, a lot of doomy stuff, just so many different elements to the music. And you can almost hear in a set like this the variation and the weaving that they've done throughout their catalog. I think they have 17 albums or something.
Oof.
I am a massive fan of these guys now. And although I think this was the weaker of the 2 sets, it was still one of my favorite sets. So you can imagine what I'm going to say about the next one, but I'm really happy I got to see them. After that, Dark Tranquillity, who has been one of my favorite live bands in recent years, put on a show in the theater that was just too loud, and I actually left. I just couldn't take how loud it was. And I didn't think it was their best performance. It didn't sound great. And I've seen them in that same venue tear it up. So I'm just going to chalk it off to an off night. And I wanted to go back outside to watch Anthrax on a cold and windy pool deck. And when I say cold, I'm talking like low 50s at this point. So it is freaking cold. It was a wild scene. It was packed. And I think the body heat probably made the temperature rise at least 3 to 5 degrees. They mixed up the set list. And again, they were just fantastic. And just a little bit of a note, one of the members of Anthrax had to leave in the middle of the cruise. They actually flew home from the Bahamas. I don't know if you had heard about this. I certainly haven't. But what wound up happening is the Grammys were the same weekend as the cruise, and that in and of itself usually doesn't make much of a difference. However, Frankie Bello had performed on some track that was up for a Grammy and had to get off the ship to attend the Grammy Awards. So who comes in to play bass? Joey Vera, the consummate pro who can play everything. But he got up there and he fit in like a glove, and this show kicked ass. And kudos to Frank Bello, because he also is now a Grammy Award winner.
How does that work? Like, does another boat have to come get him, or
no? So what happens is, from what I understand, well, that's pretty funny. I believe Joey Vera was on the boat from the beginning. He just came on the cruise, and they just played the second set. Frankie Bello got off in the Bahamas and jumped on a plane to wherever the hell the Grammys were. So he played the first set and then left to go to the Grammys, and is now a Grammy Award winner. So kudos to him.
That's a hell of a weekend for Frank.
I'll say. So that was a great show. And now I finally got to see Elevati for the first time. This was another bucket list band. I am so looking forward to them at Prague Power. They have a lot going on when they're on stage. There's a lot of people and a lot of sound, and it was even better than I had hoped for. They were really good. I think they have the potential to be amazing. I don't know that this was an amazing set. I'll just say it was really good, and I have very high hopes for them in center stage.
I'm excited too. This is one of those bands that toured a lot in the States, and I just never managed to see them.
Me either. So it was truly a bucket list for me.
I'm looking forward to it at Prague Power for sure.
We will have a good time with them. No question about it. After that, two more bands to round out day 3. The first, Blood Red Hourglass, a band I've talked about on the podcast. Good rink show. Really happy I got to see them as well. This is a band that I think if they toured the U.S. as an opener for an Insomnium or a Soilwork, they have the opportunity to blow up, because they're not only good live, but the songs are just really melodic for melodic death metal and catchy, and there's almost like a pop rock element to it, even though it's not pop music by any means. But I could see them really hitting it big here in the States if they got on the right tour. So we'll see what happens. And not to be outdone, it ended the night with Insomnium, who sounded absolutely, positively incredible. And this was what you talked about earlier about other certain sets that you check off, or there's certain things that you're going to see, or you go out of your way to see. This was one of those shows because they were doing a special set. They were playing what I would argue is their best album from 2014, Shadows of the Dying Sun, and they were doing it in its entirety. And it sounded amazing. I left after about 9 or 10 of the songs. I just could not make it any further. So I missed the last song or two, but great album, great performance, phenomenal.
Awesome. I have seen them before. I think it was the same thing for me though. When I saw them, I was like just on my last, the last
Vestige of energy.
Yeah, the last bit of fumes left in the gas tank. So I while I appreciated the musicianship, I was just ready to call it a day.
Well, I was ready to call it a day, but there was one day left. Day 4 was particularly crazy because it was of the 4 days, every day got colder and colder and colder. And it was so chilly that we were off the coast of Florida, again, because it doesn't take long to get back from Miami, and just kind of circling the ocean. But the problem was it was like 40 degrees in Miami. It was like in the 30s. And so, you're on this top of the ship. It's windy out and you're not covered. And at night, the sun had gone down. It was just really cold. So everyone's out there in hoodies, and like I had my like a hoodie like this. I had the actual hood on because you're so cold, but you make the best of it. I know a lot of people got sick. Thankfully, that did not happen to me, but it made for a wild day. And so I was happy to go out at 10 a.m. to see Xandria on the pool deck because even though I was frozen, at least the sun was out at this point. So I had some relief.
That makes a big difference.
And this one didn't sound great, but the turnout was really good. And I do think it was better than the first set, especially I would say about halfway through. Once they got going, they sounded really good. And I can see what the appeal is, obviously. The music, listen, I'm never going to accuse them of being the best band in the world, but they've got a formula. They stick to it, and it's enjoyable. And not a sight for sore eyes either. I mean, like, call it for what it is. Like
the bass player.
Yeah, exactly. So I left Xandria to go watch Dragonland at like 10:45 in the morning in the theater. And I had high hopes for this set because, as I mentioned earlier, the first set was in the lounge and they sounded great. And now this is a better venue. They're the first band in the theater, so I know they had a nice sound check, etc. And this was on point. I thought the set list was even better than the first one. They changed it up a little bit. They played for 45 minutes, and I'm telling you, it flew by. I felt like they played 3 songs. It was
I would have been
good.
begging for more after just 45 minutes.
Well, the thing is, every band plays a minimum of 45 minutes, but if you catch a band twice, I got to see an hour and a half of Dragonland, which, ironically, is not the 2 hours that we got to see them last time, but still it was enjoyable.
Very true.
And then I went up to the pool deck to see a band that you mentioned earlier that I had never seen before, and that was Tyr. I wasn't planning on going to this set, but Pat said that he saw them last time at Prague Power and said that he was like really into it, and so he wanted to go see them. I'm like, all right, it was not what I was planning on going. I stayed for 2 songs. I didn't think it was great. It's just not my thing. I don't know. It's just not for me. I can understand why people like them, but not for me. So I left.
You did not hold the Heathen Hammer high, is what
I did not. I did not. But what I did do is I went to go visit Satan in the theater. Yes,
very nice.
Satan. Satan is a British band that's been around for like 40 years.
I thought it was Miroslav Shatan was doing a signing pucks.
There are autograph signings, but what he was doing is more of a clinic where he was shooting pucks, and so you got to actually see how a washed up 56-year-old NHL player is doing it in the middle of
there's an ice rink on board. I mean,
yeah, that's true. And but Satan or Shaitan was not there. They were in the theater, small crowd. Solid show, not the greatest thing I've ever seen, but I had heard a couple of their songs on the lead up to the cruise, and I was kind of curious about them. So I'm glad I got to say that I saw them as well. Again, nothing I'd go out of my way to see, but very good.
Please tell me that you went and saw Trick or Treat.
I went to go see Trick or Treat next in the lounge.
Very nice.
This place was packed. This place was absolutely jammed packed, almost like the Seven Spires show that I mentioned a few days earlier. Really, really good show. Surprisingly good show. I will never get the chance to see this band live again. So I want to be clear. This has to be a one and done. But when they had Rhapsody of Fire on this thing, it makes sense to have Trick or Treat, and it was everything you would have imagined. They had two big blow-up ghosts on the stage. So I'll just leave that there. This might have been
they're one of
favorite set
those
the
weird,
weekend.
small bucket list bands for me. Like I've always, ever since you told me about them, I've always been a fan. So I hope I will at some point get to see them somehow.
I hope so too. You would have loved it. Full stop.
I have little doubt.
After Trick or Treat, I went to go see the All-Star Jam. I know it's not everyone's thing, but I do get some pleasure out of seeing these weird combinations of musicians bust out classic rock and metal classics.
It's like the Battle Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. It's like why is Buddy Lee Parker and Sting tagging now? But here we are. But it was good. Not the greatest thing. There was one or two performances that were kind of highlights, but it was cool. Again, getting to see people like, I don't know, Adrian Cowan sing Aces High. It's cool. How often do you get to see that? And that was one of the highlights for sure. So that was fun. And then I went back to the pool deck to see Soen with the sun going down. It was cold, but it blew away. And I mean blew away their first set. This was that tight, cohesive band that I was used to. And I'll be honest, I was listening to Soen all day just because some of their stuff has been stuck in my head ever since this set. So emotional.
We'll talk about their new album on the next episode a little bit.
What was that?
So we'll talk about.
No doubt about it. In fact, because I listened to that again today, so like I good show. And then it was time to go see Rhapsody of Fire in the theater. No keyboards, no original members, nothing that ties you to Rhapsody or anything like that. But it was still a good show. It was high energy.
Was there an explanation as to why Alex wasn't there? That's so weird.
I have no idea. But when you're watching Rhapsody of Fire with no ties to the original Rhapsody, it's really a covers band. I mean, at this point, it was a covers band. But the songs are so timeless that when they're playing Land of Immortals, I'm going crazy. Right? Like it's just, it's like holy shit, Land of Immortals. So fun set. I'm glad I saw them again. And a band that I haven't mentioned yet is Camelot, but I finally went to go see them on this cruise. But it was really cold, and I didn't stay long because if I was going to stay out on that pool deck, it had to be something special at this point. And unfortunately, Camelot at this point is not really that special because I've just seen it so many times. And much to my surprise, the set list hasn't changed at all. So it is what it is. Now Paradise Lost comes back on stage in the theater, and they are supposed to play their entire new album, Ascension, and they didn't. I don't know why. I don't know why or what changed.
Their minds.
They changed their minds, but they did play about half of the new album, and it was freaking phenomenal. Songs like Tyrant Serenade are just so good to me. I almost want to cover this album to force you to listen to it a half dozen times. I'm not saying I'm going to choose it, but I'm thinking about it. That's how good that album is.
I listened to it a couple of times, and I think I needed to listen to it a handful more.
You're really making me think about next week, but I digress. Yeah, exactly. Again, they played some new stuff that I was not expecting during this set. I don't mean new stuff. I mean stuff that was new to me. Mm-hmm. Love the band. I'm a massive fan. Elevati on the pool deck, even better than the prior show in the theater. They are going to be a great headliner, so I'm glad I got to see them again. Then I went to go see Tribulation in the Lounge, which is this like industrial gothic band, and this was just because I had a break in the schedule and was looking for something to do, so I checked them out. I don't really have much to say other than I went to Windrose next. Windrose was one of the most interesting things I've ever seen in my life, and I make no bones about it. I'm not a fan of this band. I don't like the songs. I don't like the sound.
One of my sponsor casualties over the years.
Are you still a fan?
Not really. like I think they jumped the shark with Diggy Diggy Hole. Like I get why they like shifted their sound and they're totally like more popular than they would have been if they stuck to what they started doing. But I like the old stuff.
Old stuff, new stuff, I'm not really into any of it. But I wanted to go see them because I had the time and I was curious. So I went to go see them. And I'm standing in the theater, in the back of the theater, just watching and listening. And I want to be as clear as I can be. I'm still not a fan of the band. But the performance was really, really good. It sounded great. The place was going crazy for them. The place was packed. And I had, at some point, a mutual friend, Anna Dock, had come by, who I think you know. And she comes by, and I'm like, what am I watching? Like, I couldn't even appreciate what it was, but I appreciated the greatness of what it was, even though I have no desire to actually, I'll never listen to their album, but it was a cool show to see, I have to say. So they won me over in that sense, but where Powerwolf won me over, and I now go listen to those albums, I'm still not listening to these guys, but good show.
I think it's like for people who don't like Ailstorm, but they go to an Ailstorm concert and they're like, you have to admit, like, this is fun. Like, you might not like the music, but they bring this energy that everybody else just spreads. And that's my understanding of Windrose. I'd like to see them at some point. I don't know that I would like go out of my way to see them do a headline show, but again, like something like this, I probably would have been right there with you.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because I just, good, bad, or indifferent, I felt compelled to watch it, and again, it was good. But, and this was the key, I was not about to leave Miami and leave this cruise and say that the last thing I saw on the boat was Windrose. I just couldn't do that to myself in good conscience.
So how was Hour of Penance?
I went to go see one Dark Tranquility song, and then I went to bed.
Nice.
But I say that because I just had to leave with a palate cleanser, if you will, and restore my manhood and whatever. So I did that, and it was good, and then I went to bed. And then I went home, and thankfully, the next day was stress-free, and I don't know. I came home and all was well in the world, and I got home with it without an issue. What was interesting is that in years past, the skipper, Andy, the guy who runs this thing, always announces the next year's dates, the next year's location that they're going to, etc. And although I missed his farewell address to the crowd, apparently he, I guess, made mention of the fact that logistically this year was different than others, and that he really didn't have, at this point, anything to announce other than we'll be back again next year. So I don't know if there's logistical issues with the ship. I don't know if he's looking to change the dates. I don't know what the plan is, but he plans on having a cruise. I plan on attending, and we'll go from there. But it was obviously a lot of fun. I just don't have anything to say about next year because I don't know anything.
That's, I think, the one thing that I think is kind of just compared to Prague Power, like walking out of every year's Prague Power knowing at least what the planned lineup is for the following year.
The difference is he actually gets 98% of the bands that he books, but I digress.
That's true too. I mean, to be fair, but I mean, when you have people like in Miami finding out about the last couple of bands getting announced, like it's like, you know, but again, like that's the business model. Like, you know, you're trusting that there's always going to be enough that you'll have plenty to do, plenty that you want to see without knowing the lineup ahead of time, because he has a track record of getting really strong lineups. I mean, even for me,
diverse lineups, and
I would have found lots to do with you this year.
Yeah, and I didn't mention. I'm glad you kind of gave me a window here to say this, because it was something I wanted to kind of mention. I mentioned all the bands that I saw, and what I wound up doing on this trip was eating a lot and watching a lot of music. But for other, which by the way I would do again in a heartbeat. But a lot of other people take advantage of the autograph signings or the music clinics or any of the other number of things that they have on. There was a Magic the Gathering tournament. I mean, there was some really weird stuff, but like some people are gambling, other people are whatever, but there's always something to do. It's just, for me, the lineup was so good and there were so many bands that I wanted to see. I didn't have time for anything else.
I mean, it makes sense. It's like how we don't we don't go to anywhere in Atlanta while we're there. Like, we try, but there's only so much time. You need to like rest at some point too.
Yeah.
Well,
I just want to mention.
I'm glad that I actually went on one of the cruises that that similar ship, just because I have such an easier time envisioning like where you are or what, like where the bands are playing and stuff. I feel like it would be really hard to visualize if I hadn't actually been on one of those boats before.
It is, and I'm not really sure I can describe it any better other than kind of the way that I did. But for your own benefit, I knew you knew what I was talking about. So I'd be remiss not to mention some of the things that I did miss. And there were a handful, like I mentioned. I did not get a chance to see Skyclad, which is that folky progressive rock band. I really wanted to see them, but I think one of their shows was at 3 and the other was at like 4:30 in the morning. And I'm like, I just can't do this. It's going to kill the rest of the trip. So sadly, wasn't meant to be. A similar issue, I guess, with Saturnus, a doom band that I wanted to see. Again, wasn't at the top of the list, but it was something that I would have seen if it was not at some odd hour or conflicting with a band that I had really, really, really wanted to see. And then the other one is, believe it or not, a band called Cannon Fiber. And I'm not saying I wanted to see them for any other reason than I heard that everyone that I know that saw them said they were the best band of the weekend. And so I'm just curious. I couldn't tell you who they are or what they sound like, but they are a black and death metal band from Germany, which apparently is really good. So I'm going to check them out.
I saw them on the list and I was like, who the hell is this? Like, I was like waiting for you to say that you just like stumbled upon them while you were on the boat and they were like the best show you've ever seen, but you can only see so much.
That's what it is. But, it's for me, and I fully acknowledge I'm blessed that I'm in a position to go. It is a really good time. It's just different than Prog Power. And I even asked Carrie afterwards, I'm like, what did you like better? If you had to choose, did you like Prog Power better or 70K? And he's like, they're both awesome. I want to go on every one. I want to go to each one in perpetuity. And they're completely different. And he's right. They're completely different and both amazing in their own right. So I know it's not a matter of if, but rather when you join. And so I look forward to that when the time comes. Who knows? Maybe it'll be in 2027. But either way, I'm happy to be back. I look forward to resuming the normal format next week. And yeah, it was just a good time. Despite the hassles and the hurdles, it was definitely a fun week.
I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. It's funny. I was telling Kelly that like there's two types of people that I know that are on that boat right now. There's people that are posting a picture, a comment, or a video every 30 minutes. And there's people that I will find out were on the boat after the fact because they didn't post anything and were just like enveloped in just the atmosphere. And so it was funny, like in a weird way through social media, I was kind of following along with what you were doing through the eyes and ears and comments of others. So
that's really funny. I didn't even know that this was happening. So to this day, I have no idea what was out there. I know I took a couple of pictures, but clearly, my social media presence is akin to, my father's, right? Zero. So, and I do that for several different reasons, but the reality is I got to see a lot of people that I hadn't seen in a while. I got to see others that it's always a pleasure to see and made a bunch of new friends as well. And
people you never want to see again.
Also true. But all in all, a good time had by all. So thanks for allowing me to kind of take a trip down memory lane. And I believe that for the first time in about 6 months, you're going to pick an album for next week.
First time,
if you remember what it is.
First time in 2026, potentially.
Definitely 2026. The question is, was it maybe the second time in this winter? But what are we doing next week?
Well, since we didn't have like a typical episode with the news and what we're listening to stuff like that, I'm gonna just preview a couple of things that I want to talk to you about in the next episode. Besides the album that I've chosen, but in particular, two things on the top of my docket. Seventh Wonder has a new vocalist. We'll get into that. And they released a single that is a cover of a song I had not heard before, but I've seen a lot of interesting comments about that. So I definitely want to talk to you about that. And the other thing I want to discuss with you is the first single from our friend Johannes's Dream Seeker Chrono Trigger power metal themed or Chrono Trigger themed power metal album that he's working on. They released their first single called Medieval Mystery. Has Narcissa MacArthur on vocals along with Johannes. So I definitely want to talk to you about that as well. Those two in particular were two things that came across my desk while you were away that I was like, ooh, I'm excited to talk to Justin about this. So
nice.
Something little prelude to next week.
And we will definitely get into that next week. But are we covering one of those albums, or what are we listening to?
Well, it's an album that just celebrated its math 25th anniversary on January 22nd, and so a little late to the party, but I when I saw that it was the anniversary, I was like, oh, I really want. I had this on my list anyway. We've talked about the band once before when we talked about their debut album, Stairway to Fairyland. So we're going to talk about Freedom Call and their second album, Crystal Empire, that came out in 2001. The reason I chose this is because I remember getting this CD when it came out, and I didn't really listen to it very much, and I didn't know the album all that well until more recently, and even this past week listening to it a bunch of times. I kind of slept on this album, and I'm thinking maybe you might have as well. So
I'm going to tell you this up front. I remember buying this album on the heels of their debut and being royally disappointed and thinking it's fine, but the debut is better. So I look forward to going back to it. And you gave me a little bit of inspiration because I am picking an album the following week. And I will just let the cat out of the bag a little bit now, but I'm going to stick to 2001. I'm going to stick to a album that is celebrating its 25th anniversary. And it is an album that came out, again, just weeks apart from this one that we're going to talk about. So just a little food for thought. We'll stay in 2001 for 2 consecutive weeks, but talk about 2 very, very different albums.
Okay. I'm going to have to think about that, but that's cool. But yeah, I'm
also a band that we've talked about on the podcast once. So a lot of parallels between my selection and yours.
Okay, so is it the Lost Horizon demo?
We can do that. I have no objection to that. But no, so that good choice. I look forward to going back to this because it has been a very, very long time. I don't think I've heard this album in 20 years.
It's funny when you look at the band at the time. It's like it's kind of like you didn't realize it at the time, but like Sasha Gerstner on guitar,
yeah,
Dan Zimmerman on drums, Chris Bay on vocals. Like it kind of turned into like German power metal all-stars.
Yeah, and which is what kind of funny that this album just never clicked for me. But we'll get there.
I have a feeling you're gonna appreciate it in a new light this time around because I know I have.
Good. I hope so because I'm not saying it was bad. I just never particularly cared for it. So all that and more next week. Thank you again for going on this little sailing adventure with me tonight, and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Yeah,
Ahoy.
Absolutely. Ahoy. Did I miss my cue? Ahoy.